Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the studios of Grafton TV here at 26 Providence Road. This is Meet the Candidate. I'm Bob DeToma, and in studio this afternoon, we have a candidate for Select Board. His name is Carl Palmer. Good afternoon.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So, Meet the Candidate is exactly what the title says. It's your opportunity to chat with me and tell people who you are and what you stand for, and that's the format. So we'll get started.
All right, great.
So tell us, how long have you lived in town?
I've been a resident of Grafton for 27 years. My family's actually from Grafton. They ended up moving to Worcester, but then when I had children in my 20s, I decided to move back to town and have been there ever since.
Okay.
It's a town I love.
Great. Yeah, it's a great town. It's a wonderful town. A lot of nice people.
I remember the only light we had here was the blinking yellow light in front of Nova Byrones, right? That's how long I've been here.
Okay. Military service? Any background in the military, or?
I haven't been in the military, but I enormously support our military, our first responders. I've had family members, my dad, all my relatives, my grandfather, aunts, uncles, they've all been in the military. So, yeah, I support our military, but I don't have military service myself.
And work experience? What do you do for a career?
So I have been in the IT industry for 25 years. I currently am a senior cybersecurity analyst for a Fortune 500, $100 billion real estate investment trust company. And, that keeps me pretty busy. There's a lot of threats out there as far as cybersecurity is concerned, so it's job security.
So do you have a lot of sleepless nights?
I sleep pretty good for the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
But, that kind of job is always, you're looking at, trying to look forward towards what's risk. What are the threats? What's the landscape look like? Especially with what's going on in the world right now. Anytime there's a tragedy, the scammers and the hackers always try and take advantage of that. So, yeah, it's a constantly evolving environment. Anybody that's in IT and cybersecurity will tell you that.
And you work from home?
Yes, I used to work at an office in Westboro, and then worked from home sometimes. But then once COVID hit, it became a permanent residence there, as far as my office location.
Yeah, you and the rest of town.
Yeah, I know, a lot of people, yeah.
Yeah. When was the last time you had a, 1 being the low end of the scale, 10 being the high end of the scale, when was the last time you had a 10 event take place?
We had a crypto locker event happen maybe 6 or 7 years ago. That was for another company that I had worked for previously, but we managed to isolate it and remedy the situation pretty quickly. As long as, they in cybersecurity world, they call it defense in depth. You have to have multiple layers of defense, and that prevents you from additional risk. So we haven't had anything too serious, knock on wood.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that out loud.
Yeah. No, that's true. You don't want to tempt fate. But those of us at home that don't do anything with cybersecurity, we think of things like on a movie, and the bells and the whistles and the horns are going off and the klaxon is screaming and the lights are flashing. It's not like that, is it?
Not really. It's looking at a lot of boring log files all day, for the most part.
But what is it you see that triggers you into action?
So that's an interesting point. It's funny you say that. So you have to look for patterns. You have to know what your regular environment looks like, and then you look for patterns, and then you look for variances in patterns and things that don't look right. It's a lot of common sense and investigative work and boiling things down, to make sure that, the environment is running as it should be and that you haven't been compromised. But any good organization should always think like they have been compromised. You have to think with that mentality. We've already been compromised, and, you have to protect the assets, which is your data.
So when you were a kid, did you tear the video games in the house apart all the time, or did you, how did you develop that love for IT?
You know what? It's kind of funny. I used to be in sales a long time ago, and the internet was just coming about, and a lot of companies that I had been working for were doing outsourcing of their manufacturing and things of that nature. Was after things were leaving the country, and I said I have to get into something that's a little bit more stable. So I intentionally said I'm going to get into IT, and I started a long time ago, and here I am still there. I kind of fell into the track and stayed there. So
Cool. Well, you're the first cybersecurity expert that I've ever met, so.
I wouldn't call myself an expert.
It's good to know. If my computer crashes, I'll give you a call. So
for my family, I'm my family's computer guy.
I'll bet.
I get those calls all the time.
I went to radio school, so people call me to fix their radio.
There you go.
So you're running for select board.
Yes, sir.
And how did that process begin? Do people come up to you at a cookout, or you're out having a beer with buddies and they say, Carl, you're the man for the job? Or did you just roll over one day and tell the wife, you know what? I think I'm going to run for select board. So walk us through that process.
You know, there have been people, friends of mine, that have said, you know, you should run, and you know, I've thought about it for years, and you know, I just see a lot of changes in town, and like I said, I've been in town for a long time. I remember this town when it was much smaller, and you know, I love the town. I'm worried about the town, and that's what prompted me to run. I've done a lot of volunteer stuff in my life, and usually the volunteer jobs, the ones that don't pay, are the best ones. You know, there's been times like at previous jobs, I developed a IT equipment donation program. So we had a lot of IT equipment that was gently used, and I developed a program through there where I could donate thousands of dollars of IT equipment to places like Veterans Inc. iPads we donated to the Child Life Program at UMass for children with cancer, so they had something to do while they were getting their treatments. There was a number of places. There was underfunded schools, daycare centers that we donated just thousands of dollars worth of equipment to. Two of the companies that I worked for previously, I was on their community outreach programs. I coached Grafton sports for well over 14 years. And then when all my children left the nest, I volunteered for Big Brother. And I did Big Brother for this second grader whose family was from Ecuador. It was a great experience.
Nice.
So I'm all about the volunteerism and
Yeah.
giving back.
Very cool. So when people urged you to run, what was in their mind? What was it that they wanted you to do for them?
People, you know, they were concerned about the changes happening in town. That, you know, the town's just, it's growing too fast.
But change is constant. I mean, we go through
Yeah.
we go through change every day.
Absolutely.
So
But they don't want to see the small town charm that we get to enjoy living here in Grafton change. You know, like I said previously when we had been talking, I'm a bit of a history buff, and I love so many things about Grafton, so many historic things about Grafton, that I'm concerned about the direction that the town is going and overdevelopment. And like, I'm not against development, I'm not against change or growth or anything like that, but we need to do it in a pragmatic and, you know, reasonable and responsible way.
okay. So then you make the decision to run,
Mm-hmm.
and what did you do first?
I asked a lot of questions. I asked a lot of questions and did a lot of, you know, investigating into, you know, the requirements, what you needed to know, and what was the job going to be like. And, you know, I decided that I was just going to jump in with both feet, and then I had to get the blessing from my family and make sure that they were okay with it as well, you know, because you need to have a good support system. You take a lot of heat in politics.
Right.
So.
Have you had any doubts so far along the way? Like,
Not at all. Not even a little bit. The people that I've spoken to while I was getting my signatures, I got 3 times the amount of signatures that I needed because it was giving me an opportunity to talk to the voters and find out what their issues were and what they were concerned about for this town. And it was enlightening to me. And the amount of support I got, the amount of feedback, positive feedback I received from them was just, it confirmed to me that I made the right decision to run.
interesting. So you get elected, and you're sworn in. Well, it's a scenario. Play along. So you get voted in. You take your oath, and what's the first thing you want to tackle?
There's a lot of issues in town. You know, there's a lot of projects coming up in town that are going to need, you know, scrutiny, and they're going to need to be, you know, looked at with an analytical eye. And I hope to be able to bring that to the table. I think that all of the issues that the town has, there can be consensus, there can be compromise. We can find a place in the middle where everybody can meet, and I hope to be able to bring that to the table.
So if a tech firm wanted to move to Grafton, you would have, based on our conversation, you would have a little bit of expertise in
Sure.
trying to vet out that company's proposed move to Grafton, let's say.
Absolutely.
But there are other things that you might not be experienced in. Do you, how do you tackle something that you don't know, I guess? My answer to that question would be I look it up on YouTube, but that might not necessarily be available.
Well, as you know, everything's available on the internet. There's so much information that's available. And like I was saying before, I want to look at things with an analytical eye. And I know that I'm coming to this board with, no practical experience working on a board. But a lot of the decisions are what's right and wrong for the town of Grafton. And that's basically boils down to like binary bits, ones and zeros. You know, is it right or is it wrong for the town? You know, and you have to do your investigative work, and that's what I do every day. I investigate things, and I determine what's the risk factor, what's the threats, what's the landscape. So I have no doubt that I'll do the right things for the town, and I'll do the due diligence required to make the right choice.
So in your process of seeking out information, have you talked to people that are currently on select board, or which mentors or what types of mentors are you asking those questions of? Who are you seeking information from?
I actually have talked to some of our current board members, which was a great conversation. I've talked to past board members.
Did they try and talk you out of it?
No, actually, it was everybody's got to be crazy to do this because of the amount of flack that you're going to take.
Sure,
You know what I mean?
yeah. No matter what you do, someone's going to get pissed off.
There's an old saying: no matter what you do, good or bad, somebody's going to have something negative to say about it, right?
yeah.
So that's kind of the nature of the beast. But
Sure.
I got thick skin, so yeah. So it was a great conversation that I had. I've talked to current board members. I've talked to past board members, but the best information I've got is from the people that are going to be voting. That's where the rubber hits the road. How does it affect the people of town?
What are some of the questions that you had that you needed to get the answer for?
What's your biggest issue? What was your biggest issue? You know, what things about the town do you not like? What things do you like? You know, I ask people just straight up, you know, what can I do to help you? And people that, you know, it's financial basically. In a nutshell, that was the biggest response, was the taxes and how much, you know, we're at $16.88 per thousand on property values. The only town around us that's higher is Westboro. I think they're at $18.22 per thousand for property tax, so it's pretty expensive.
But it has to be a challenge, to my mind, to want to be able to reduce the tax base or assist people that are burdened by taxes.
Yep.
And then most people's first answer is, well, you got to bring more business in.
Would love to.
Sure, but then you got to balance out that with, like you said, when we opened, you know, how do you bring in businesses or even big businesses,
Yeah.
and not lose that small town charm? I
Exactly.
mean, because you're talking about a tightrope act that
It is.
a lot of people can't handle.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, there's a lot of tough decisions to be made, you know. And again, it's all going to go back to what's right and what's wrong for the town. You know, everybody would, and that's one of my platforms is small businesses. You know, we need to support. Maybe we don't get, you know, 5 huge businesses. Let's get more small businesses. What can we do to attract small businesses to the town?
so the people that you talk to that are small business owners, what are some of the hurdles that they face every day? I'll bet parking is one of them, or, I mean, that was the first thing I thought of. If I owned a business up at the Common, you know.
Oh, I know.
Parking.
I know. And see,
But what are they telling you, I guess, is part of it?
well, you know, there's a lot of towns around Grafton that have such great downtown areas like, you know, Hudson and Westboro. They have nice brick buildings and walking areas and stuff like that. And Grafton doesn't really have that. All we have is the Common. You know, so there is some parking issues there. You know, it would be nice if we had a nice economic corridor like, you know, one of those other towns that have a typical Main Street. But yeah, the businesses, you know, I would do whatever it takes to support them.
And it's a challenge for Grafton because, historically speaking, the quote-unquote downtown is up on the hill, and the original train station is, you know, way over here in North Grafton. So
Sure.
it's funny how downtown didn't develop near the railroad. You know, it's kind of like, how did those things get separated?
Yeah.
But once those things take place, they're permanent. You know, it's pretty much the way it goes. You know.
Well, that's the thing about development. I'm glad you said that because, you know, like I said before, I'm not anti-development, but once you overdevelop, you know, you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. You know, so I think that we have to take a very cautious, phased approach to the way that we do development in town because if we destroy that small town charm that Grafton possesses, then it's gone forever.
So when you're talking about development, are you talking about residences or
Both.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
both, you know, business and residential.
Right. So residences, unless someone deeds a piece of property to the town and says, you know, I'd like this to be held in trust for conservation issues. I don't know that there's a lot of ways for people to prevent new houses being built, I guess, you know, so it's
Yeah.
like,
If people own property and they want to sell it, you know, you have to abide by bylaws and
right.
And but we have had generous gifts, donations that we have gotten from families in town, and I mean that's always welcomed. The Land Trust, I think, does a great job with preserving the open areas in town, and I think we need to continue down that road where we can. I mean, we have enough areas, I think, in town where businesses like Centec Park, areas like that, down by the train station, the Pine Street project. That's going to be, you know, a great area for commercial as well as residential.
I admire the people who volunteer their time and hold office in town, or even just run for office, and they may never actually get elected. But one of the things that I would worry about if I was running for office would be the unintended consequences. You know, I wanted to help the town by bringing this business in, but how does it affect this issue? Or if I was for this issue, how does it negatively affect this group of people over here?
Yeah.
And it's a
balancing act.
yeah, and it's the kind of thing that would keep you up at night.
Yeah, it does. And I thought about it, and you know, really, like I said, first and foremost, I think your priority has to be the town. That you care about the town, you want to preserve, you know, all the great things about this town. And then, you know, you're never going to be able to make everybody happy. But in that same breath, you have to do what's best for the greater good. You know, and I'm gonna be, you know, as straightforward as possible in that regard.
All right. Any closing thoughts before I let you talk to the townsfolk?
No.
No?
You have any other questions for me?
No.
This was a lot.
Unless you want to talk about hockey, but I don't know if people at home would be interested.
We could talk about that all
We'll wait
day.
till the camera goes up. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. It's your opportunity to talk to the voters in town, tell them where you stand, asking for their vote, and there is your opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you, Bob. I want to thank the voters of Grafton that have supported me thus far. I appreciate you telling me your stories and sharing your concerns. I hope to represent your voice in this town and do the right things for the town that I call home. On Tuesday, May 17th, please go out and vote. Mark it on your calendars. I can't say it enough. You have to vote. If you care about the town, it's important to exercise your democratic right and vote. I'm asking for your vote. Carl Palmer for Select Board. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in.
Thanks, Bob.
I
It's a pleasure.
enjoyed the chat.
Me too. Appreciate it.
Well, that wraps up this edition of Meet the Candidate. On behalf of all the talented people that work here with me at Grafton TV, thank you for watching. I'm Bob DeToma, and remember to vote.